We must look into the trials we failed long ago. In a time past, our world intertwined with another through an upheaval scholars call the conjunction of the spheres. The gods allowed unholy forces to slip into our domain. The offspring of that cataclysm was the nefarious force called magic. Yet we did not banish it, instead studying the vile arcane for our own power and wealth. And the monsters at our door, the unholy relics of this conjunction. The trolls, the corpse eaters, the werewolves. Did we raise our swords against them? Or have we laid this burden on others? On so-called witches.
I decided to make today's video on the conjunction of spheres. So I imagine a lot of you have heard about the conjunction of spheres, but I imagine a lot of you might not actually know what it is, or you might know what it is but on a very, very basic level. I decided to make this video basically what the conjunction of spheres is and how it occurred. Well, at least how we can assume it might have occurred. So to begin with, the conjunction of spheres is basically a natural cataclysm which occurred 1,500 years before the events in the novels. And what this did is it basically trapped a bunch of, I suppose you could say, unnatural creatures in this dimension. Well, at least in the dimension that humans live in, at least in the Witcher universe. And this included creatures like ghouls, graveyears, and vampires. So it was during this time that elves say humans, or, more specifically, the Dark, or Wasgore people, they first appeared and, their own world had already been destroyed and they basically colonized the north and maybe even the south. So that's basically what the conjunction of spheres is. It's where a natural cataclysm happened. It basically dumped a bunch of monsters and humans and stuff onto another world, which is where The Witcher takes place. And that was the world of the elves, the original elven homeworld. So a little bit of information as well. It's said that the Nordling humans that we see now, for example, Geralt's a Nordling human. I mean, he's a Witcher now, but when he wasn't a Witcher, he was an Nordling human. It's said that they actually settled on the continent many hundreds of years after the conjunction of spheres, and this event was called the First Landing. So it's sort of debated as to whether or not the two original human civilizations that arrived there during the conjunction of spheres were extinct by the time the Nordlings arrived, or maybe they could have been, the Zerrikanians, etc. So there's actually a book in The Witcher 1 that explains it pretty well, and this book is called The Conjunction of Spheres by Adam Neviel, and I'll just read that to you. The cataclysm, commonly known as the conjunction of spheres, happened 1.5 millennia ago. A cosmic collision of several parallel universes, this disaster left numerous creatures not native to our reality trapped here. For example, ghouls and graveyears, which, like their own ecological niches, are simply relics of the conjunction. The elves claim that humans also arrived in this world during the conjunction. This occurred soon after they managed to destroy their own world. The elves claim that it was during the conjunction that humans learned to use magic. So yeah, another aspect of the conjunction of spheres is that there's a theory that when this sort of natural cataclysm happened, it basically dumped a bunch of magic onto our world from the planes of, air, fire, water, etc., which is where the Jinn are from. So there's a lot of different theories, like Yennefer in the books describes that magic as being all around her. Some people think that they might draw it from the planes, it's a little bit like, but you could just assume that the world of The Witcher has its own kind of magic in it. It's almost like, imagine magic is like air, you can't see it, but it's always around you in that world. Of course, these are all vile lies and soul fabrications circulated by non-humans, who will resort to the most malicious slander to justify their claims. So, as it said, the conjunction of spheres is just a theory. I mean, it's kind of proven in The Witcher 3, but, this is said by elves. Humans, you never know. You never know with this sort of thing. So I just read over The Witcher 2 journal entry, and it's very similar to The Witcher 1, and I think The Witcher 3 journal entry is worth me reading just because it's very interesting and it adds a lot more to what I've already said. Scholars have many vices. Possibly the worst among them is a tendency to describe the simple in unnecessarily complex terms, to dress the plain the garb of false learnings. The conjunction of spheres might serve an excellent example of this. This name, so mysterious to a common ear, could be replaced with a much simpler alternative, when worlds collide. The phenomenon itself can also be explained in terms simple enough for a child to understand. Imagine, dear reader, that our world is a ship sailing on a great sea. From its deck we can see other, distant vessels, those are stars. These vessels each bear their own goods and their own crews. They usually pass us at some distance, barely visible specks, even views through a spyglass. Once every few thousand years, however, a storm breaks above this cosmic sea. A storm so strong it tosses the ships towards one another, making them sail cheek by jowl. Part of the crew of one ship can, at such times, move to another, and some of the cargo from one ship's hold could spill onto a neighbouring vessel. When the weather calms, the ships separate once again and sail their separate, invariably different ways. The so-called post-conjunction begins, namely monsters such as ghouls and basilisks are precisely such passengers from another vessel, and we humans are castaways, flung against our will from somewhere far away onto a world previously inhabited by the elder races. Once here, we learned the arcane mysteries of magic, unbeknownst to us before. Could the worlds collide once more? Perhaps. Can this cataclysm be avoided, or, that opposed, hastened? Some scholars believe there are beings who have mastered this skill, who possess rare genes, which allow some to seize the helm of our vessel and steer us to safer waters or to our doom. And I think that's basically just sort of a throwback to Syrian, the Elder Blood steering the vessel. That analogy is perfect, just because it basically says, imagine we're all in a ship, each world is in its own individual ship. A really powerful storm happens that pushes all the ships together. People from one ship jump to another, people from other ships jump to each other, and then they all split apart after the storm's done, and then boom. And imagine, that on a cosmic level. That's effectively what the conjunction of spheres is. How is it caused? It's not known. It's sort of similar to why does the world work in the way it does. We can't really tell. It's just because of how things turn out. There just happens to be a cosmic storm every so often. And in The Witcher 3, just towards the end, you can actually see the conjunction of spheres happen again, in a way. It is stopped by Ciri when she stops the White Frost, or, well, she does stop it either way, but you can decide whether she lives or dies. But yeah, that's basically what the conjunction of spheres is. It's, in simple terms, monsters get put onto our world, well, onto the Elder World, and so do humans. And you can imagine that the conjunction of spheres doesn't just happen in one place. For example, there could be humans in other worlds and monsters in other worlds, etc. Because of the way that it all works. There are multiple ships, as it says in the analogy. So that's the end of today's video. I'm going to have my next video probably on the School of the Wolf, so I'm going to have to try and work on that a bit earlier than I normally work on these videos, just because I imagine that one's going to take a long time. But I'd also want to say that I'd really like to make videos on the vampires, I'd like to make character, obviously, videos on Regis and Dettlaff. But just on the vampire race in general, I'd like to make an overview video, so do tell me if you like that. And as always, be sure to like if you enjoyed the video, or if you just want to see more of this sort of content, and subscribe if you're new, and you like the sort of content I make, like Witcher stuff. So anyway, at the end of these videos, I'd like to ask you all a question, and what I wanted to say is, do you think that within the Witcher universe, humans are actually taken from the world that we live on now, or they're taken from a completely different world? Have humans come about in other worlds is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, anyway, be sure to like and subscribe as I said, and I will see you all later. Have an awesome week, guys.